All right, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rough Sketch to Final Draft. I am your host, Coach Adam, and we are continuing on season 5, episode 9 now. As we continue
Wow.
to grow, we're shaping our mentalities, our mindsets, and we're changing our lives internally, externally, mentally, and definitely physically. And the guest that we have on today, Samantha, she is absolutely phenomenal. She is a family nurse practitioner. She is a published scientist and entrepreneur. She kind of has her hands in a bunch of different areas of life. She is growing in her social media presence, and we are blessed and graced to have her with us today. So,
Oh,
without
thanks.
further ado, Samantha, do you want to say a few things to the amazing audience?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to connect with you. And I always admire the work that you produce on different platforms. I think it's very inspiring and caring and can really reach people in a very unique and creative way. So I'm really excited to be here. And I just want to say thank you for having me to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the honor is on our side. The family is going to embrace you. For anyone who's listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else that we have, iHeartRadio, now that we're growing, thank you so much to our 10,000 followers as we continue to grow and grow. All of her links will be available to us down in the links down below. And obviously, we'll do it as an audio at the end as well for any of you who are listening. So hold tight. We'll get to all of that where you can find this amazing individual. So, Samantha, I just want to kind of start us off with a bunch of different conversation topics that we could have. You are such a well-rounded, well-versed professional, and you also have an understanding of so many other different modalities to be able to help people heal. Let me just start off with an easy softball question. What are some of the most influential and beneficial modalities that you really like that get you excited to do what you do when you're helping others? Let's just kind of start there. What gets you excited to get out of bed?
Sure. So I love connecting with people about how to help their health and well being. So I've been a nurse for 15 years and a family nurse practitioner for 10. And before that, I worked in hospitals and my first job was as a lifeguard, for example. And then my father was a chiropractor growing up. So I was exposed to, his practices. He privately owned practices. And so I was exposed to that. Then I just, through my education at Ohio State, University of Miami, and then in North Miami, a school called Barry University, I really sort of expanded and kept connecting and building upon my career. And then I've been in Austin, Texas for 8 years now, and it's a very hot spot for startup companies. So I really felt that being around other young and older entrepreneurs, no age discrimination, would be important, when starting a business, which was my ultimate plan. So, as a family nurse practitioner, I really tried to find ways to optimize patients' health because for so long I was working in spaces where we were really just keeping people alive and on their medications rather than actually helping them get better. And I felt as though there had to be a different way, right? Like this can't be the answer. What are the other treatment options? Um, you know, I when I was born, I had a baby cancer in my right eye. And so they had to remove that and then do some reconstructive surgeries and things like that over the years. So I was able to sort of understand what a gift life was at a very, very young age. And I think that caused me to emotionally mature a little bit differently in forms of empathy and emotional intelligence in general. And so, it's been a really wild ride as the founder of a wellness clinic very close to COVID era, and navigating, sort of pivoting and offering more telemedicine treatment options and things like that. So lots of pivots go on, I think, and as an entrepreneur, and then, but at the same time, maintaining integrity, which you know about that. I think it's so interesting how you're a coach and you're also by trade a lawyer. And so sort of, in all of those experience actually build really graciously upon each other, and so it's always important to not ever really put yourself in a box. And I think that's what, the coaching sphere is really beautiful for, sort of putting out there, all of that. And then I, as a family, like, cook people, so to speak, or create an environment for them to have optimal sorts of internal well-being through their lab work and through their different supplements that they might need to help them with sleep, etc. And everything that we recommend is evidence-based, so but I would say a lot of my practice has developed over the years surrounding optimization of your hormone levels, or trying to help people really just feel very energetic, also feel as though they are able to, you know, get optimal movement, for example, which also comes in with your bodybuilding and training. And I've always aimed to be very athletic, like in mindset and just in daily life. So, growing up, I, was a swimmer. And so, had to get up like super early to be at the weight room and then swim before school, swim after school, and so it really built a lot of sort of like resilience and community for me. And so, and my pool is really sad right now. I have not graced it enough this summer,
That's
but
all right.
you get kind of busy with juggling all of the above. But work life balance, I think, is critical. I think it's really important to unplug sometimes. So we do a lot of work around mindset, helping people with our mindset, also helping people to develop better boundaries. So there's a lot of mental health aspects, I would say, that we incorporate as well. But yeah, basically just optimizing energy, sleep, and also helping prevent age related disease processes so that we can age gracefully. A
Love it.
little bit of aesthetic procedures. So we also want to help people stay confident but safely, and have natural looking results with that. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's been quite the experience, pairing up, urology and hospital experience mixed with, family medicine, mixed with plastic surgery experience, and then psychiatric and professorial experience. So you always think, when you're going through it, you're like, what am I ever, how am I ever going to long term use this in my life? And then you realize like all of these different experiences just build upon each other, in a very synergistic way, in hindsight always, if you allow them to.
It's true. Well, you've got the whole gamut. I would definitely say that you've got enough going on there that someone should be able to come to you as a one-stop shop, fix their mindset, fix their outer, fix their inner, and get yourself going. Now, I want to circle back and hold space for you in the sense of all that you've gone through, because I didn't know that about what you were born with. So
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm holding love and space for you right now.
Well,
Sending you
that's
a
so
love light.
kind of you.
Yeah, I didn't
It
know. So
is so
blessings to you.
kind.
Um,
Yeah,
and of
no
course, we had that
worries.
journey. You're now in Texas, and you were originally in Ohio. Was that correct?
Yes. So my dad's side of my family is from the Houston area, and my mother's side of the family is from Ohio, Southern
Right.
Ohio. So I kind of went back and forth some growing up, but mostly like I was in school during the school year in Ohio, for example.
And that goes into it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, which school? Ohio State. Where did we go? What did we study there? What,
Yeah,
what, what
so
was the
I
story
I
there?
I lived in Ohio until the end of my 4th grade year, and then we moved to Indiana from 4th grade until the end of my sophomore year of high school, and then we moved back to Ohio. So we moved a lot. My stepfather was a pastor. So we sort of had to like take different, like, he had to take different positions and things like that, right? It was interesting, the trajectory. And at the time, just like kind of like a gratitude moment. At the time, I was really, really sad that I was moving, in the middle of high school, right? Like, I'm like, how am I gonna, make new friends? And I don't know if it was the greatest experience from a social perspective, to be honest, in hindsight, it was really rough, like being around different people. I moved to another high school. So I ended up going to 3 different high schools, and so I made friends pretty quickly, like to some degree. It wasn't like a super close bond, right? But during my junior and senior year, I was allowed to take what we call post-secondary courses where they were college branch courses. So I felt like I was like skipping high school for half of the day because I was able to go to the college and like putz around, and then, but anyways, so in that experience, I was just able to then apply for some scholarships at Ohio State, and I ended up getting a full ride scholarship. So if I wouldn't have moved, back to Ohio end of my sophomore year, beginning of my junior year of high school, I wouldn't have gotten that scholarship. So, it's interesting how you look back on things and you're like, I guess like even though that at the time felt like a very negative experience, it ended up being a huge gift. And I think that shifting that, I have had a recently a very negative experience with the passing of my father. And I think that you informed me that your father had passed away as well, or
No,
no,
nope, nope.
sorry.
You're okay. No,
No.
no. My father is the
Okay.
only person I've ever had in my life. So that's, yeah,
Okay.
very, very important to me. Hence the reason why I'm holding space for you about your father. He's all I've ever
Thank
known.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he passed away at the end of January. He was only 56 years old, and he was really did a lot of wellness services for people and touched a lot of people's lives. So in that process, I've seen how important it is to have that work-life balance and etc.
Yeah. No kidding. And again, I'm holding space for you right now, live for anyone who
Thank
ever watches in the
you.
future. Sending you light and blessings again. Yeah, well, my father is the only person I've ever had. We immigrated here when I was about in between 11 and 13 years old because we kind of went back and forth from France. Je comprends le français complètement. And we ended up
Oh,
here. So he's all I have. I have no other siblings.
okay. How beautiful.
Different story. Yeah. So a little bit different, but I've shared that previous podcast. Go watch some of those episodes, fam.
Yes, I will check more
Yeah.
of it out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Yep. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
alive and well. So
Alive and well. Yes. But in that sense, we'll kind of, I'm sending you love on that one. We'll keep going
thank
from
you,
there
thank you,
in a
thank you,
loving
thank you.
way.
And we'll keep your dad alive to be over 100. That will be the goal,
That's,
right?
that's
So live a long, beautiful, beautiful life. But that's the goal,
right.
right? So I study a lot of centenarian communities, which are people who live to be over 100 actually.
Yeah. Okay.
There's something called the blue zones. I don't know if you've ever heard of those before, where people live a really long time.
Only in podcasts. And in no way would I ever pretend to be an expert. I've only heard the terms. If you want to unpack that for the sake of the audience, please dive in because even I would like to learn a little bit more about that. What does that mean?
Okay, so they're just different areas of the world that people live commonly to live to be over 100, and not only live to be over 100, but live in a healthy way to be over 100.
Gosh.
So, um, basically, they study what are their daily lives like? What are their diets like? What are their health history, their etc. So community is hugely important in these different zones where people live to be really long, healthy lives. And then also spirituality is also a component. So there's typically there's a couple of blue zones in Japan. They have strong more like philosophical foundations. So there's like a couple Japanese philosophies called Ikigai, which is like surrounding your soul's purpose. And then also the Kaizen, which is also a philosophy that's adopted by Toyota in their business model. So one of my favorite sort of just side note of Kaizen phrases is like a problem in your life has to be basically the weed has to be pulled out by the root and into the light in order to be resolved.
I like
So
that.
I think that's really valuable in any aspect of life, whether it's personal, business. If there's an issue, you need to bring it to everybody's attention, sort of, rather than but then the other component of the phrase is, but if you step on it, you stomp on it, you only make the roots stronger,
Ooh, ooh, there's the
right?
dichotomy.
So
There's a dichotomy there. Okay. Gotta treat it right as we
yeah,
pull it out. Yeah.
so pull it out by the root and into the light. But if you stomp on it, it's only getting stronger, right?
I like that.
And,
Yeah.
and deeper rooted into the darkness. But it's very fascinating how, on a weight loss journey or insomnia journey or those are the main things that sort of bring people in, I would say, in a sense, or energy journey, energy levels, right? And mood journey, how interesting it is to watch people once they change their mindset to one of nourishing themselves. That's the main component.
The floodgates kind of open up from there. I'm with you. Keep going. It's yeah,
No,
absolutely.
totally. It's just that, basically, and you've seen this, I'm sure, on your journey of coaching people, through that support system that you're creating for them is, just that encouragement and that they're not in this alone is so valuable.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's as if they could have done it 100% because I believe wholeheartedly, and what is it, like a drop the mic moment in that regard? I believe wholeheartedly that each one of us has the answers to our own concerns in our lives within us. At the same time that
Mhm.
sometimes we just don't feel comfortable enough. We're asking for permission or we're asking for forgiveness always. And really what we're doing is we're asking for permission to be able to fix our own problems. And I know that sounds to the ear in a paradoxical way. At the same
Mhm.
time, I think everyone can understand that and ingest that psychologically and spiritually that, yep, that's exactly where the inversion happens. And that's one of the reasons why we
Mhm.
have such a conflict in the physical world because we have these answers within and we know the answers to our problems, our riddles, our concerns, and our heartaches. At the same time, we're not necessarily sure if we have permission to be able to go after them. And that has a lot to do with obviously the practices of psychology and the fact of going back to how your childhood was, whether or not you were rewarded when you did something good, whether or not you were ashamed, whether or not you were allowed to actually enjoy your success. Maybe you got an A on a test, but your dad or your mother wasn't in the regard of saying, hey, that's really good. You should have got an A plus. Maybe that was just the way that it went. So as you get into your real adult life, you know what you should be doing. But at the same time, you've never learned how to, as you said, self-love to be able to allow yourself to actually get the good grade that you know you want to actually achieve. So it's really interesting in that sense. And to piggyback of what you just said also, with the Ikigai and all those other good philosophies. It's reminiscent of obviously Greek philosophy and Greek medicine, where
Mhm.
Hippocrates and so on and so forth had talked about the fact of if you really do want to heal, what are you willing to give up first, right? And if you're willing to give up, your bad food habits right before night, then like you were saying, you could probably get to sleep better. If you really do want to lose weight, are you willing to get rid of the sodas and the fried food? And if you really, really, really want to get into your fitness journey, are you willing to give up your sleeping in the morning to getting your behind to the gym at 4 a.m. and getting your grind done? So I couldn't agree with you.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, discipline, and then also like the phrase, I think it was Hippocrates that said, let food be thy medicine. Is that the quote?
Yes. Beautiful. Perfect.
Let food be thy medicine. Like nourishing yourself and listening to and buying the right getting your groceries and I also have realized that there's also a huge connection with digestion and food preparation. So if you're preparing your own food, the digestive process starts faster because you start to create saliva, which is the first step of digestion. So you're secreting those chemicals that, are able to help the stomach digest better. So when people don't ever cook anything at home, I can tell because it's really tough for them to lose weight, even if they're eating super healthy foods, meal prep, and things like that. So it's fascinating, like the different trends that you see there.
Hey man, I couldn't agree with you more. That the idea of this, and I'm using air quotes for those of you who aren't watching this on YouTube in the future, in the idea of this stubborn belly fat, what Samantha is saying is absolutely just on point. And the fact that literally it has so many other factors going into it. Maybe it's the oils that you're cooking with, it's the polysaturated fats that are in the enzymes of the butter, whatever else is being put into it. There's so many things that are literally holding back the digestion to be able to do it effectively. And again, I in no way am an expert. I have a certification in nutrition, but in no way did I go to college for it and things like that. So I'm always open to learn.
Yeah, but you work through it and you realize what toxins are, and
Right.
then you
Right.
understand how to stay away from them and how much better you'll feel when you do. And we're all human and we can travel and get off track, of course, or um, movement is so critical though. And then also just trying to have a high protein diet. But stress is huge because basically the gut lining sees stress and sugar the same way. So sometimes people are like, I'm really not eating that much sugar anymore. But what's happened is they're so like they're not even breathing. Like, you have a full, speaking of which, I take a deep breath, right? Like as soon as I say that. But
Right.
you do a whole conversation and consultation with them, and they're breathing here the whole time and then wondering why they're so anxious. So I will even tell them, like, watch a YouTube video about breath work, like, and then I'll teach them, to do belly breaths basically, and like put their hand on their belly, and they're so freaked out by that feeling, at first they're like, what? Because sometimes they've never done that.
Yeah. That's
It's
a beautiful thing.
very fascinating.
It's true. And these are simple, right? In that truest sense, and not to oversimplify what is genuinely complex, but there are so many modalities that you can just at least begin your journey on. I know so many of the people who do listen to this and listen to coaches such as yourself with good wisdom. So anyone that's going to find this episode, that I'll send over to you in that regard. What we're saying is sounding simple. It's just the beginning stages, because so many people are also sometimes adverse and they're a little bit afraid to get off the edge of the fence because they think it's going to be so complicated. It's really not that complicated. The way in which we get better is the exact same way that we get worse. It's little by little, and forming these little habits here and there. It becomes one junk food, one cheat meal that becomes 3 cheat meals a week. But if you just change that habit and reverse it, it can go the opposite direction too. So never at all forget what Samantha is saying. It's just little challenges and little changes in the behavior, and it'll make a massive difference.
Totally. And I think though, it's like if you just stay by the rule of getting enough protein in your diet, it is such a game changer for so many health benefits. It's definitely challenging for us to help people who are vegetarians to get their protein intake. I'm sure you've experienced that in bodybuilding. I'm not sure,
I have.
but
Yeah. Being actually to that exact point, before we call them out, I am a vegetarian and I do bodybuilding and I do it natural. So there's no steroids, and then there's also no meat and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm doing it completely natural. So it's,
so challenging. So tell me then. You help me find out. Maybe this is obviously a topic for a reason, right? So how would you say that you're able to hit your protein marks?
oh man, painstakingly. I drink literally egg whites every single day. I usually go through 2 of the little cartons and so on and so forth. I have about 6 to 7 on average hard boiled
Lots
eggs.
of eggs.
A lot of eggs, a lot of eggs. And then I have a protein shake that is as clean as a protein as I possibly can, from actually who I'm sponsored by. This is not a sponsored ad, but I am
Sure.
sponsored by them, by First Form, and I do use them. They are great.
You're allowed to answer honestly. It's a
That's right.
free
Yep.
country.
That's right. And they are third party tested, so it's okay. If you guys
Oh,
see this,
that's always
I love you
good
guys.
news.
Yep.
And let's touch on that just tiny bit for people who don't
Please.
know what that means.
Yeah. So in that regard, those are the steps and stages that I do. But please enlighten us on
No,
what.
just the third party tested. I wanted to say something about that, like to research your supplements and things that they're third party tested. It means that they've been proven to do what they say they do. So it's and they're usually made in a much cleaner facility that's been examined and things like that.
Yes,
Right.
yes, and I will only go through them. I will only go through First Form and then Nordic Naturals. That's a big shout out. I haven't been sponsored by them yet, but at the same time, maybe one day, who knows? If you guys see this video, I love you. But in the same time, those are the only 2, because those are the ones that I've done my research on. And other nutritionalists, such as yourself, who are proficient in these things, have said they are okay to stand by. And I did a whole bunch of trial and error testing as well. Like I said, never an expert, and I trust individuals such as yourself to point, noobs like me in that regard into the right direction.
No.
Please,
Yeah, just clean ingredients, right, is really important. And then you eat like beans
I do
or
a lot of
things like
legumes.
that?
I usually have, instead of
Okay.
doing the chicken and rice, I usually do about a half a cup to about a cup of beans and a little bit of rice, wild rice or brown rice. I know that the
Right.
science and the just the conflicts in that whole entire debate of whether or not it's white rice or it's this and that and otherwise is all
Right. whatever feels good for you sometimes. I think it's just don't get too caught up in,
True.
yeah, all
And
of
so,
that.
yeah, and I may be doing things wrong, so please, I invite you to correct me
No,
right now.
nothing's
Yeah,
perfect. Yes, so I have heard that too, like that the shucks of the brown rice can be toxic, but
right,
if it's I feel like if it's organic, it's not made with the pesticides, right?
correct.
As long as it's like organic rice, and then I just don't eat a ton of rice in general because it's a lot of carbs, and I'd rather kind of get carbs in other directions.
Another
So,
direction, yeah. So,
um,
but
but yeah, but
that's it.
it's clean and lean, and we basically live off of Chipotle bowls. No, I'm just teasing.
I wish I could. I know who you are out there. All of my fans who actually really do that is Adam, Justin, all you guys. This is a big shout out to you guys. You guys are always inviting me and I don't go. So yes, Samantha's right.
Oh no, you gotta go to Chipotle every now and then. Yeah, I used to felt like every time I called my cousin, he was at Chipotle because he's, trying to lean out, and I'm laughing at him. But homemade Chipotle, right? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so we've been, I think it's important not to take yourself too seriously with these types of things, right? So, but yeah, I would say it's just been a really fun journey and helping people sort of avoid surgeries and also get their health back on track over the years. I'm sure it has been for you too, just to see it's what motivates you, like you said, to get out of bed in the morning and just keep doing that and being on that mission of helping guide people onto their best track.
Agree with you more. I do want to actually kind of like lovingly pause here for a second and humbly circle back maybe 100 steps because I think it's going to be important also as well. Like what was it that took place in your life? Sometimes as we're reading a story that's called like the inciting moment of a script for a movie plot. What was it that took place for you? Or did you always know that this was going to be the path that you wanted to be on? What spurred you on as someone who was going through college and so on and so forth that you knew that this was the direction that you wanted to take? I'm so curious because I think that what you do is amazing. So, what brought this out of you? What happened?
Yeah, so I really saw the value of confidence and the aesthetic medicine gave, from having undergone, my experience with my eye. And then I also realized after watching like my grandmother and my great grandmother and my great grandfather, who were really athletic people. They were farmers, but they had like day jobs, and they were so cool. And I'm so grateful for having their influence on my journey. But I watched them turn from like super athletes to like blobbies, with heart disease and on 20 different medications, and, having to be in assisted living because you're having mini strokes all the time. And I'm just like, what is happening? And I was in my early 20s, and, you always think like, oh, I wish I could go back and take care of them better now, but, you can't, right? So, that inspires me a ton. Like, I literally have a picture of my great grandmother, like a little gallery by my desk with her and like my great grandfather when he was in the army and different things like that. So it's really important to me. I would say my journey of watching people age disgracefully instead of gracefully is a huge part of my commitment to understanding longevity and what's healthy for people and what's low risk but high reward. And so every person that I see, I really try to optimize them in that way based on their personal history and what works for them, because there's no cookie cutter version of what is best for everyone. I think that's a really poor way of doing medicine. We have to evolve. We have to, and we are. There are more practitioners like myself with private practices that are able to do integrative medicine, where you're basically combining the best of east, north, south, west medicine all at once. And you're trying to formulate these very like unique care plans while also, just having sort of like a script of what sort of offerings you have.
I think
So
it's imperative what you're doing. That's again why I'm so grateful for you to be on the episode. I'll never stop saying it.
thank you
Even
for
in the
having me. No, this is awesome. I'm grateful
show.
for what you do. I think that, you know, you certainly have a better habit of keeping yourself out there from a vocal perspective than I do. I tend to kind of hide in the bushes sometimes, which is not a good thing to do. And you're great at using your voice and being a leader in the community. So I think that that's really important. So we need more people like that to speak their truths and also for us to be examples for others that you don't have to put yourself in a box. You know, you could have just said, I'm a lawyer and that's it, and I'm not going to do anything else. And look at all the thousands of people's lives you wouldn't be touching because you restricted yourself into that, you know, area of expertise and not expansion. I love when people are creative. I think it's one of the greatest way we connect with source, God, the universe, however you want to describe that. You know, I think it's a way, it's an energetic way of connection, and it's a way that we're able to positively impact each other and realize we're not alone. There's a huge amount of disconnection in society where I call it comparisonitis. We're comparing ourselves to these unrealistic societal expectations sometimes, and judgment, and just like really negative emotions, right? And that propels negative behaviors.
True. It's so true.
Whether it's lacking in discipline with diet or movement, or the types of people you want to surround yourself with, or your daily habits of maybe gossiping or complaining overly. Just heritage wise, I think it's interesting you moved from France because my last name is French, so I'm part French, and I don't know, I'm a mutt. Like Irish, Scottish, whatever, German, who knows what else. But I am also part Native American, and I sort of grew up with some of those values, and um you know, in learning some of the language and learning the culture, and in celebrating different festivals and things like that. So it's really critical, it's a really important part of me. And in general, I think we should all be connected with nature in some way. It's very important to respect the earth. So anyways, you know, shaman, for example, in the rainforest, you know, from studying different medicine types that are available to us, will say to their patients, when was the last time that you laughed? And when was the last time that you danced? So it tells them, like, when was the last time that you had joy that you could express? And when was the last time that you moved joy through your body, right? So I think that's really an interesting perspective because I think that in American culture, and I've lived in Miami for 10 years and I've lived in Texas now, you know, so I've seen different aspects, disgrace my own people. I love America. I love American people, but we're very uptight in general, right? Like we're very like, oh, you don't want to dance to, you don't want to wiggle, you don't want to wear that, you don't want to do this, and you don't
Very
want to
rigid.
express yourself too much, right? Or, you know, like, so but I think it's just really important to for people to stay inspired to, you know, do different things, and really there's something that I teach my patients about. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but it's called the Hertz vibrational scale. So it's like basically showing emotion and the vibration of hertz that it would be at.
Right. And there's different musical scales that can be therapeutic and so on and so forth. Yeah. Keep expounding that. I love getting
No,
into
so there's something that they've researched where they see if you're in shame and fear, you're vibrating at like 20 hertz, but if you're in emotion of joy or love or peace or enlightenment, you're around like 7 to 900. And it's very difficult for, yeah, big range, right? So it's very difficult for disease processes to occur in higher vibrational states. So that's why having a higher vibrational mindset is so powerful to all of the cells within your body. Just like stretching and movement causes different myofascial neurons. We're seeing that exercise creates these certain molecules. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but they're calling them hope molecules because they help you produce dopamine and serotonin, but they're like in the muscle and they look, I don't know, kind of like fun when they look at them under a microscope. And so all of this is really connected, and we're learning more and more in holistic and longevity medicine that, mind, body, spirit, right? So if people are open to that, there's a doctor named Lisa Miller who I follow and connect with, who's very experienced on researching and publishing research on the effects of spirituality. Sorry, if I could speak,
You're all right.
spirituality on the brain. So, and on its ability to recover from trauma and also different psychological health and well being aspects.
Beautiful.
And so it's really interesting to see how it can actually transform the brain to have that sense of connection and whatever that is for different people. So it's fascinating because I also live in Austin, so I get my fair bit of like tech bros, right, that are very like matter of fact, like that doesn't really make sense to me.
Right.
Like, and aren't gonna really go there. But I'm like, hey, do you go for a walk today? Yeah, I really like going for a walk outside. I'm like, there you go. Connect
There you
with
go.
nature. You're
That's
doing
right.
it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like so like woo woo all the time, right? So
True. There's a practicalness to it. Yeah. No, we had a guest on the show. I'm 100% with you in the sense that we had someone who was actually talking about the study of cymatics in the fact of what they're doing. And I'm not sure if Lisa is the same one. So shout outs to her. But the research that's being done right now also is even inside of these cathedrals throughout Europe and throughout France and throughout London, it's still there. They're using the old church organs and they have bowls and dishes that are actually recording the vibrations and what that is doing at the cellular
wow.
level. So it's absolutely part and parcel of what you're talking about. It's a beautiful study, and they're showing that those types of things also even line up with the beautiful stained glass windows. The shapes that the organ literally makes in the water is the exact same. So someone who
Oh,
knew what
that's
the
so
organs
cool.
did and has the effect at the cellular level was making the stained glass windows. This
People
ancient,
are so brilliant,
yeah,
right? Like
I know
our ancestors.
they're not as
They
ancient as we
didn't
thought.
have Google,
No, yeah, no, I'm amazed by
they
it, and
figured things out a bit differently, and they had a different level of understanding on different things that I don't think we'll ever really totally grasp, right, in our modern technology. And I said that one time because like butterflies migrate from Canada to Mexico every year, for example. And this guy one day was like talking about, or this bird was pecking, this woodpecker was pecking on a thing like a light pole. He's like, oh, it's not a very smart woodpecker, and I'm like admiring him. I'm like, oh, cool, woodpecker, that's so cool. Like, I'm remembering what that's a sign of, and like, all this stuff, right? And so then he says, like, oh, it's not very smart. I was like, really? I was like, dude, a bird can fly from, Canada to Mexico without a GPS, and we can't even go half a mile. The bird's way smarter than we are,
right.
So
Yeah, without our maps, without knowing what the street name is or something like that. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you.
yeah, and butterflies
Yeah,
do the same thing. So we think
yeah,
like these things don't have intelligence, but obviously there's a sense of intelligence in all
yeah.
all creatures that's really
Agreed.
fascinating and beautiful.
Agree. There's like a reintegration that we need to do. You're recommending it to, obviously to the tech guys to just go out to nature again. And I'm going to circle back to what you were saying before of our disconnection from nature. Heinrich Fromm wrote a book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, and that kind of goes into what you're saying with how the social, societal pressures of modern day life is killing us, and we're amusing
Mhm.
ourselves to death, thinking that we need to have all these surgeries, we need to have all these lip injections, we need to
Mhm.
have all these things done, we need to have our mansions, our Ferraris, our yachts. We're amusing ourselves while we're disconnecting ourselves to exactly what we're talking about this instant, that would actually be the healing medication that our bodies need. Reintegration with nature, reintegration with harmony of just listening to birds chirp, going out to the beach and listening to the waves and actually having the negative ions soak back up into the immune system to help boost it and to do the right breath work that would actually do so much for us. Even in our vitality and our youth would restore if we would just get the breath work correct again. So do you think that as we're kind of moving forward with what you're doing in the integrative medicines, are we bringing to life some of the more ancient practices that we used to do, and we're reintegrating those back into our world?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally. 100%. Like, I
yeah,
think that people are really craving, any option besides always turning to surgery or, a more invasive invasive procedure. They want to say, hey, I want to, not have to take this high risk, low reward situation. So, for example, we refer a lot of times to different, how do you call it? Sorry, I'm so exhausted. I've literally
You're
been up
okay.
since like 3:30. But no, so basically acupuncturists or, different sound healers. So I have a friend who's an acupuncturist, a doctor of Chinese medicine, and also she does like sound healing bowls.
With the bowls, yeah.
I have to sneeze.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me. Thank you.
Cover your ears, anyone who's just listening. You're okay. It's
I'm
all right.
allergic to no, that's like my friend sending me a sneeze for not being able to think of the word
Uh,
acupuncturist,
yeah,
She's like probably gonna watch this and be like, seriously, Samantha?
yeah, it's okay.
You call yourself integrative? That's a very general thing to do, right? But like, acupuncture, chiropractic care, obviously there's times and places for surgery,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah,
And I want to mention that, we're not saying, that you should never get an ultrasound or imaging or, that you need more invasive testing or, things like that. Certainly those things have a time and a place.
true. But I mean, to that exact point, to re-emphasize that, just as an illustration, as a funny thing, is you don't when you go to the mechanic just because your engine's making a noise, the first thing should not be just replace the car, right? Like that's not the
Right. Get a
idea.
new engine,
Right.
right?
Yeah, you take some other steps first, right? So yeah, what Samantha is saying is absolutely beautiful and holistic in her approach. Absolutely. So continue.
It can heal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you give it the right conditions, it can certainly heal. I made up a little phrase myself. I say that a flower cannot grow in oil. Speaking of oil changes, right?
Mm,
So
yeah,
you have to plant it in the right environment. You have to plant yourself into the correct environment because if you're not, you can't thrive, you know?
true, true. The whole entire environment needs to be nutritious for anything to be able to grow, even if it was going to be fruits, vegetables, trees, whatever. And I
Right.
think to your exact point, even just to share with you, I guess in that regard, literally also, we in the bodybuilding world, we always get injuries and so on and so forth. About
Mhm.
4 years ago, I ended up injuring my right shoulder, and I'm right-handed, so that was hugely debilitating. And every
Mm,
single doctor that I went to, the first instance was surgery. First instance, surgery. I went to got 3 different,
mm,
so on and so forth. And within 2 years of just doing a little bit here and there,
mhm.
just like you're saying, I went to a naturopath. I went to someone else who gave me some other type of healing medicines, and we tried the Reiki, we tried the massage therapy, and it worked. 2 years later, we're good as right as rain. This was, 6, 7 years ago,
You saw a
and
bunch
then
of witch doctors, Adam? No, I'm kidding.
right. I believe in the woo woo. That's right. Here on Rusket's Final Draft, we believe in the woo woo. I've had some interesting guests who are pretty woo woo, so shout outs to them. But yeah, no, I embrace it. It's real because we're human beings that are in a physical reality, right? In that regard, we are spiritual beings in a physical reality, not physical beings in a spiritual reality. So the more we get in tap with spirit, the more we're getting more in touch with who we really are. So I definitely say that as a kind, loving PSA.
Well, there's a reason why there's dust in our bones and veins,
Yeah,
right? Is what I try to tell people when they really don't feel special. It's like, yeah, you are special. Everyone on this planet is special and has beautiful gifts, and we all deserve to be prosperous. So I also tell my team and anyone who I communicate with, I believe in collaboration over competition always. I've taken that approach as an entrepreneur, and I think it also opens you up to other sources of income when you are able to connect with people. And one of my friends a long time ago said, "What's the difference between?" And I always have over the years just met the coolest people. And this particular person, I'll have like a little moment to brag on him. He's like a music producer and he used to work with like some really big like rappers, right? So he said to me, "What's the difference between a con artist and a businessman?"
ooh, tell me.
Intention. And I was like, wow, that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
right.
You know? So what are your intentions? Are you in your integrity? Are you trying to help people? Because if you're trying to help people, you're not trying to sell them something,
Right.
right? You're just trying to give them a service, like whether it's legal advice, whether it's medical advice, whether it's coaching for health and bodybuilding, or it's teaching a new provider how to, prescribe certain medicines and treatments,
Right.
right?
Right.
So there's a ways that we use our sort of our gifts and talents. But people a lot of times when they're not empowered, they get trapped and feel, as though like they're never going to be able to break free from those financial restrictions that they're under, or this or that, I mean, golly, look at all the people who have like a Shopify store selling just junk sometimes, or Amazon, right? Like I can't tell you how many people I know who make tons of money just selling products on Amazon or this or that. Like there's so many ways to make money
Yeah.
in the world, right?
Agreed.
But I think that people just get really overwhelmed and overworked and overtired from like a 9 to 5, or maybe they're working as like a Uber driver or cleaner or something, like something that it's not their actual like preferred career, and then they think they're kind of stuck in that forever.
Yeah. The rut.
No judgment. We all need to make money, and we might have different careers at different times in our life, but I definitely think that inspiring each other to not feel trapped in any way.
True. I couldn't agree. And even if someone out there who's listening to this is in one of those directional paths in life and you feel it when you listen to this and it's like, "Ooh, that hits," breakdowns lead to
Well,
break,
there's a
right? So it's okay.
Yes,
It's okay.
and
Embrace.
wealthy, right? Like wealthy, right? You need to be financially stable to be able
100%.
to afford to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And just like you are changing the ways of integrative medicine, I think the idea about what we're saying with the drop shipping and everything else like that, where people are looking for new avenues to create a career, those traditional mantras are starting to fade away. The world, as we can open up a whole new topic for a rabbit hole for a whole another 2 hours of a podcast, but
Totally.
as this world is awakening right now, and we all know that we're going through a huge shift on so many different polarities: economic, spiritual, physiological, educational. The world is changing. We feel it, we know it. Lots of things to say, lots of
Mhm.
different sides to take. I don't take a side. I'm in the middle, and we're having a great conversation here with Samantha, so don't at us. We're just having a great conversation. But in that regard, like we're all waking up, and we know that the ways in which we've been homogenized for the past 200, 300, 400 years, maybe, is really just starting to become not what we're going to be doing for the future. It's just not. So finding new ways to do things again is at the forefront of everyone's mind right now. And that's why I love interviewing individuals like you who are pioneering it again and reintroducing it back into our collective consciousness. And you're doing such a great job of it, by the way. I said I wouldn't stop shouting you
Thank
out with your
you.
praises. I
Oh,
respect you.
you're so kind. You're so kind. But yes, no, it's great to be able to share the message, honestly, on your beautiful platform. So I'm grateful for the experience. And one of the things as we're wrapping up, I would say that shifts you from that feeling of shame and fear to joy and contentment is gratitude. So sometimes it's for something as simple as the breath in our lungs, the ability to speak, or if we're able to walk. That's not a gift for everyone, right? And from there, you can make new decisions and new connections that feel empowering and keep growing and go on. And so it's not all about financial abundance. Does not always happen in a monetary way. Sometimes it might be your friend taking you out for dinner, right? That's
Yeah.
abundance. That's richness. That's community. That's connection, or making you dinner, or inviting, like something. Maybe it's someone just giving you advice that's a totally stranger that's gives you that connection. Like I had an experience recently where, and I'm really not always like this nice,
Okay.
but I met
Well,
someone.
we're grateful. We love
I'm
you.
kind. I'm kind, I should say. I'm a kind person, but this was a little over the top recently. So, I mean, not really, but like just a little deeper than maybe another person would have done, right? So, I met someone at the coffee shop. She took my order. I was with my son. She told me that I asked her how many kids she had. And she told me that she'd delivered 4 children, but one of them had passed away, and she named off their names, and then she says to me, "And today would have been," and I'm gonna get through this without crying, don't you make me cry.
I'm right here with you. Holding
"That
space.
day would have been his 18th birthday." That day, in that moment, and I just reached her hand. I was like, "I'm so sorry, and it was meant for me to understand the gift of having my son, even in moments of extreme stress and chaos, because he's very rambunctious. I love him, but
That's your handsome boy.
you have to make sure he's not jumping off tables and things like that sometimes, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, anyways, but also I went across the street. There was like this cool little shop. I found a vase that was really beautiful, a like hand painted vase, and I got it and I took it to her. And I wanted to put flowers in it first, but she was like leaving her shift for the day and wouldn't be back for like 2 days. So I told her, like, I was like, "Okay, will you please buy flowers for it? I'm so sorry." So, but she was like so grateful and she cried and we hugged a few different ways and times, and it was really magical. And I would just say that she was like, "You don't even know me, and that's why I say I'm not always this nice."
You're even nicer. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. You're not just this nice, but you're even nicer. Got it. We understand.
No, 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 no. But sometimes you can just give someone a hug or just a moment. You don't need to get them a gift, right? So, but that is the gift, like
You're
that
present.
moment of presence. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Bingo.
connection.
That's right. Never underestimate who you are as a gift in this universe in the first place, fam. That's the message right there. That's
And I always say the greatest healer of all wounds is and always will be love, because you have to have love to start treating yourself and others the right way.
yeah. That's
And
true.
without that, hatred breeds a lot of shitty behavior. Pardon my language.
It's okay. I speak fluent French. It's all right.
But, when you're in a state of being miserable or your confidence is low, you're going to act out. That's what breeds addiction. Shame breeds addiction. Right. And to whatever that may be, there's a lot of very legal addictions. Sugar is a legal addiction. Alcohol is a legal addiction.
Happy.
It doesn't, have to be, like hard drugs for it to be an addictive. Thoughts can be an addiction, right?
True. 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 I mean, legitimately, validation has become a very
Mm.
rampant addiction in the world of today. It is a dopamine hit in the sense that without the validation, somehow these individuals who are in this world right now, and I hold space for them because it's very confusing and there are companies targeting you. At the same time, it really is in the sense that they don't have a sense of worth if they don't get their validation. They'll take down photos if they don't get 300 likes or more on a particular post or however that goes. And it's like, that's really telling of the world that we're living in.
Sometimes you have to throw the chips out there and they fall where they fall, and some people pick up on them, but the impact is there, right? So it's staying true to yourself and integrity, and then also building something that you can be proud of in the long term. And nobody's perfect, right? We're all works in progress. And
A rough sketch
also
to final
giving
draft.
yourself, what was that?
I said a rough sketch to final draft. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Rough sketch to final draft. I like that.
There
Yeah.
you go.
And it's also just giving yourself grace during the rough draft.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's how we came up with the name for the show. That's the whole entire reason. Life is just a rough sketch. And we're always working to our final draft. And you can go back to the drawing board as many times as you need to put more detail in it or take it away or modify some part of your script or your plot and keep on going. That's how life is.
Totally.
That's it. Well, I'm just going to simply say it's been an absolute journey. It's been a pleasure. More than anything, I could even just begin to say a genuine thank you. Thank you to all of you who end up watching this
Yeah.
and liking in the future. You have shared with us so much of your journey and a part of this entire moment from where you've moved to where you are now, the way that you help other people's lives. And I'm still holding space for your father and your grandparents. What a beautiful, touching portion of your journey on your impetus on why you're doing what you're doing and how you show up in your practices and the people that you work with in your entrepreneurship. That really does make a difference, because obviously you would use the example of what's the difference between a musician and the other portion, what the difference is between a hero's journey and a villain's journey. They usually always
Mhm.
still have the same problem. Someone hurt them in their past. But the difference is for the hero is that they choose to make sure that no one ever goes through that ever again, where the villain says, I will hurt someone and hurt everyone else because I was hurt. And instead, you chose the hero's path in your journey of life to say, I don't want anyone to ever go through what I went through. And you've made a difference in your life. So, on that note, this is where I usually just, before we end, I like to give it back to my amazing guest for you to end on a note of, if you watch this a month from now, a year from now, you would want to have said you had something on your heart to be able to share for your future audience, for those who will see this in your community. What message do you have for people for the future and those who are going to listen to this in months and years to come?
So maybe just two quick points of forgiveness, offering that to yourself and others and not harboring resentment. Not necessarily that someone has, quote, you don't have to earn forgiveness. It's to let go, right? It's like, we have the new like Mel Robbins thing, the let them theory. So it's very fascinating until you don't, right? And you let them until you don't. And then also learning how to set appropriate boundaries. I say boundaries will set you free. Right. So you have to learn when to stand up for yourself. I watched a podcast recently where a gal who her father was, something high up in the military, and he would say she came home bummed out because, she had been bullied by someone that day. He said, they really upset me. She said, they're saying this about me and that. And he said, well, did you tell her F you? And she was
Yeah.
like, no,
Okay.
I didn't say that, why would, and he goes, well, sometimes you have to know when to say that's enough.
Yeah.
Maybe not use those words, right? But to
Yeah.
say, I'm not going to engage in this conversation anymore, or I don't think this is a good fit. Like I have other family obligations and we have to, this isn't a good client
Mm.
fit type thing. So you have to know thyself and know your boundaries. And that would be a big component. And also, I say that nature loves diversity. So we're all meant to be different. So whatever like your quirky, weird thing is, like lean into it, right? Rather than shying away from it and trying to conform to everyone else, like just actually lean into it, because I'm super like all over the place. I like to do like 55 things at once, but it works. Like somehow every day it works, right? So not everyone's supposed to be in different roles. We have leaders, we have people who are more like supportive of the leaders, and we need all of the above to function. So that would be the only other thing I think I would be grateful to share. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're just a gift. And I want the whole entire community to embrace you. I know that they will. Your love and your light is amazing.
Thank you.
One last thing to obviously have them be the links will be down below, like I promised, fam. Don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way. I forgot to say that halfway through the episode because I didn't want to cut off our amazing Samantha. They keep on telling me I have to say like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to be a better.
Yeah, like and subscribe. There you
Yeah, with a
go.
friend. So
If my
yeah.
kid watches me on this, he'll be really excited I said that.
There
So
we go. There it is. She's doing
click
it.
the
She's
button
doing it.
below.
Good. And for those who are listening on the audio, where can they find you, Samantha? Well, I know because you got a few different things going on.
Yeah, so you can reach out to happybodyatx.com. You can find me there. You can find me through my Instagram, which is the Samantha, and my last name is spelled T like Tom, HIRY. You can find me through TRUEweightlossclinic.com. I am helping manage that practice. So there's a few ways that you can find me. Those are probably the top three. And yeah, so super exciting. And what about you, Coach Adam? How can we find you?
We're at Coach Adam what is it? Coach Adam net. That's the website. That's brand new. We just got done finishing that one all out. So you can get the coaching, you can get the
Beautiful.
seminar, yada yada. And then there's Instagram, which is coach underscore Adam, because there's a few out there, but there's only one like this in that regard. So hopefully you guys find me. And then otherwise you can find the Rough Sketch of Final Draft on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So thank you so much for subscribing and following. That's it. So other than that, I love you all, fam. Thank you so much for being here, Samantha. And thank you to you all.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Preach at all times, but if necessary, use words.
I love that.
Preach at all times, and if necessary, use words.
Thank you. What's on my heart is what's in my heart, which which is just
Emotional sense and in a professional sense.
I would say the first thing is professional. I'll talk to that. I think one of the